Really? We're already out of focus? Come on, you stupid camera. Mess you up. Magic hand. And there we have it. So we are live, actually. It's 10 o'clock, so your morning motivation. If you have projects, please get them done. Do the right thing. Get up. It's cold, I know. Get off the couch. Get out from under the blanket. If probably most of you are at work, I would imagine. But we're going to talk about a couple things. Obviously, get your projects done. Project motivation. Yeah, project. We got lots of projects going on, so I got all kinds of stuff happening. But today we're going to talk about the LS9 video that I just put up last night. It loaded after we got off on our live feed. And it helps not just with talking about LS9 stuff, which we'll talk about a little bit, but it helps us direct ourselves into asking the right questions. Very important, because and we went over this a little bit yesterday, because we were asking the wrong question when we were talking about does the 5.3 block seal better than the 6-liter block because it has more thickness between the cylinders. You know, the smaller bore, more thickness between the cylinders, better sealing, that the head gasket's not going to blow right there. Yes, that makes a lot of sense, except that that's not where it blows. So that's not really the problem. So we're looking at something that could be the issue, but actually is not. It's the same thing with this LS9. And I'm guilty of it as much as other people, probably more so, because I never recommend that camshaft for anything. Even the time that I do recommend it, so if I backpedal just a little bit, the time that I would recommend it is when somebody has the LSA cam, like in their ZL1, I would recommend putting the LS9 camshaft in, because it's a better cam and it makes more power, although it does lose a little bit down low. And that's typically why I don't recommend the LSA cam, the factory LSA cam, because the power curve that it provides, forget about whether it's a blower or turbo or nitrous or NA. We'll talk about the NA combination on any motor, on any displacement motor, any combination. That camshaft will be softer down low. And when I say down low, up to 4,000 or 4,500 or RPM or so, depending on which cam you compare it to, and will be better up top. It's not as good aftermarket cams, but it's pretty good for a stock cam. In fact, it's arguably the most powerful factory production camshaft that they've made for the LS stuff. That and the LS7, both of them made the same power when I tested them. So that's probably the most in terms of peak power. It's not, however, the camshaft I normally recommend. And I particularly don't recommend them for turbo applications because of all that loss in low speed power up to 4,000 or 4,500 RPM. It tends not to spool very well. So if you did a comparison, which I showed, and the good place to test it was on the 5.3, which I showed on the NA motor. We showed how much it lost compared to a factory LM7 camshaft, which arguably is probably the best low speed power factory camshaft because it's the mildest, and all the other cams tend to lose low speed power compared to that camshaft. So those are the two extremes in terms of production camshafts. The LS9 being the top end cam, the LM7 being the low end cam. Those are the two extremes. And one of the points that I made when I was talking about this is this would be awesome to have. You could have both of these with VVT, which I don't think you could, but you probably could with VTEC. If you had a V8 LS motor that had VTEC, and you could have both of these factory cam profiles if you were doing a factory VTEC, because if we're doing an imaginary thing, we might as well go all in and do this as an imaginary factory VTEC LS like truck motor. We would have the top end of the LS9 and the bottom end of the LM7. That would be awesome. That's not a real thing, though. we actually can't have that, but it would be cool. But the interesting thing is that when you look at that, and especially when you have data like that, you go, yeah, look, that's definitely losing power. If we put any of the many aftermarket cams, like a truck Norris cam would be a really good third example for this, because it would make more power than all of those. It would lose a little bit down low at 2,000 or something, probably compared to the factory camshaft, but would be as good or better than the LS9 on the top, and then way better than the LS9 through all the rest of the bottom curve. So you can do that. You can have something that has a pretty good combination with minimal compromise for both of those. But again, even though we know that that's true, even though we know that a bigger throttle body flows more than a smaller throttle body, if the smaller throttle body already flows 30 or 40% more than we need, putting the bigger throttle body on doesn't do anything. And it's the same thing with this LS9 camshaft. Even though it loses power down low, and the reason that they did that is on a blower application, on a positive displacement blower, you have all kinds of power production down low from the immediate boost response, and then it's enhancing where the roots blowers tend to be less effective at higher engine speeds and higher boost levels. It's having the camshaft make that be more efficient, and then they'll, by doing that, by putting that camshaft in there instead of an LM7 camshaft on a blower application, you'd also lower the boost. Not because it's all bleeding out, but you'd lower the boost because you've made the motor more efficient. So it works fairly well for that. But the thing is, if we run a turbo on it, we're going to lose low speed response. Yes or no? Well, the answer is probably yes. But we're not asking the right question. Do we really care about boost response at 2,500 RPM? I know a lot of guys are going to argue that they do, but guys that actually have these things in cars, especially guys that are actually racing them, don't want that. Because what happens if you have like all the boost at 2,500 or 3,000 RPM? What happens to your traction? You don't have it. So if you make 500 or 600 foot-pounds of torque at 3,000 RPM, you're not going to be able to put it down. Maybe in a drag race car with slicks and your suspension setup, maybe you can harness that, but no street car is going to be able to do that. So, and a couple of guys in the comments made this point, and I think it's a valid point. It's very good that, hey, look, I already have way more power than I have available traction. Lots of guys are throwing out some fairly big numbers with these things. Hey, look, my stock bottom end 5.3 yada yada with an LS9 cam and a turbo went 890s. And the reason that it did that is because they're limiting the power production down low, which is what you'd want to do. They're also using that camshaft, and this isn't altogether true, because they're saying that, yeah, I'm limiting power down low where you might hurt the motor, but you're really not, because where these things are making torque anyway, even if it's softer down low, the amount of peak torque that they're making, it's going to be below 5,000 anyway. So the amount of peak torque that they're making is still going to be fairly high with any kind of reasonable horsepower output, unless you're making your peak horsepower at 8,000 RPM, which you won't be doing with that particular camshaft. But they are making good power with it, and where they're losing power, they're traction limited anyway. So it's actually not a loss on these applications where guys are running these and racing them. So even though we would be losing low speed response, and again, only compared to the LM7 camshaft, less compared to others, but there would be a loss. And I wouldn't recommend putting an LM7 camshaft as an NA camshaft in your 5.3 because it's pretty soft. It does make good peak power, but again, you have to have it revved up to do that. But on drag race applications where guys have converters and they have lack of traction, they're minimizing those kinds of losses that we see there anyway. So it's not really that much of a minus to them. In fact, these guys are arguing that it's more of a plus. And the LS9 camshafts are very cheap because guys have taken them out to replace them with better camshafts or bigger camshafts. Even if you're running an LSA or other kind of supercharged motor where you would have this LS9 camshaft in there, guys are replacing those and putting stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 22, whatever blower cams in them. And in my opinion, they'd be better off putting a non-blower cam in there. But again, the same thing happens. If you have an LS9 or an LSA and you put a good cam in it that makes a lot more low speed power with a supercharged application, do you have a traction problem in that? And again, yes, it would improve power down there with the right camshaft. And on a blower application, going to an NA cam would help the power there, not the blower cam would help the power there. But are you just spinning the tires more? And maybe if that's your thing, if this is a cars and coffee kind of car or a donuts to go get donuts, you're doing donuts. If it's that kind of thing, maybe you want more low speed power. But again, even though we've answered one question, there are other questions that we need to look at. And for a lot of guys, they would need to ask the right question to figure out whether or not this thing would work. And whether or not it's soft down low might not be that right question. So there's more than one to do, more than one question to look at. And that's why we do this. We have lots of people that comment, I do a story and tell you this one does this one, this one does this one. And they're like, yeah, but if we're doing this with this one, it still works. And see, that's all good stuff. That's why there isn't, we got to get rid of these hot girls. I know that sounds terrible, but we're going to hide user. Get out of here, bots. Botnik. So make sure that when you're going all in on these things, like when we talk about golf ball dimples and rod ratio and piston flipping and bore versus stroke and all of these things, are you asking the right question? People get myopic in their focus, and they're like, oh, but I'm zeroing in on this thing. What about if we did this versus this? Look, if you're just trying to get somebody to say yes, that you're right, let's just say yes, that you're right. And so that you can move on with your life. Because, and I get this a lot with bore versus stroke. And we've talked about this many times. The guys are, oh no, the bigger bore is always better. Well, it's not always better. Otherwise, it would always be on every motor. And what happens when we say always? We know that we're always not going to be 100% right. So that's the thing. Ask yourself, step back, ask the question that you're asking, look at the thing that you're looking at, and then step back and go, hey, look, instead of bore versus stroke, really it's about displacement. Or really I shouldn't be worried about this and I should just add boost, which is almost always the right answer. So let's see what you guys got going on. I have been working with my buddy Jimmy. He's been doing some reels and stuff, and we're getting prepped for getting the NSX stuff done, which I'm very excited about, which will be very good because it's cool stuff. So we are going to go to live. It's all the way live. Don't even have to walk. Don't even have to drive. We're going to live chat. Air Rock. E-Rock. You're a live one. Good. Des Moines in the house. I've been through Des Moines. You always get a notification first. I never seem to get it on time when I'm sitting in front of my computer. You're here, man. These things last an hour, so even if you miss 10 minutes of it, not a big deal. I never was interested in LS motors until I started watching Richard's channel. I think I might buy an LS3 base motor now. That LS3s are good. The thumbnail that I have up is actually an LS3 base motor, and it's that de-stroked motor we know that just wins on in every possible way. It is the 4.8 crank with the 6300 rod and custom piston in an LS3 block with a 4060. I think that this one actually was a 4070 because I think we may have bored it. And then this one, we ran cathedral port heads on it, Airflow Research 230 heads, but we also ran rec port heads on it, and we ran a high ram on it, and ran turbo on it, ran this LS9 camshaft on it, ran other camshafts on it. We ran all kinds of stuff to do the testing on it. It was a really good motor. It's probably the big 495-inch tall deck stroker thing that I did. Probably the most involved builds that I did. We deleted spam. Pittsburgh's in the house. How can you make a 408 stroker stock fast? What do you mean stock? If it's a 408, it's not going to be stock, right? I have a 480E issue if you want to take a question about Dave, you can ask whatever, and for everybody here, you can ask whatever question you want. I have a topic for the day that I discuss, but once we go to question and answer stuff, you can ask whatever you want. Any situation where LS9 is desirable, there are 10 better cams. I would, from my discussion, I would disagree with that. Because if a guy already has it and and he has it and it's free and it does what he needs it to do, there isn't a better camshaft for that. For Dyno said, can you do a LS brake specific fuel test on stock cam versus aggressive anti-cam at a cruising horsepower of 30 to 40 horsepower, showing what RPM is most efficient for either and peak specific? No, I can't do that because the engine dynos is not a good place to do that. It'd be much better to do that on the chassis dyno or to actually do it out on the street. What cam specs deem a cam a turbo or a blower cam? Well, if you talk to the cam manufacturers, valve events would dictate that. But for the average guy, if you look at the LS9, I think the most telling factor for that is the fact that it has 122.5 LSA, but the LS7 also had that. So they were trying to do very specific things that don't just include being a blower cam. They're also trying to do something very specific for idle quality, for fuel mileage, for emissions, for drivability, for longevity, for cost. They have all of these other things that are also things that have to go into why this cam came out the way that it is. Richard, have you found a cam for an L92 that doesn't sacrifice low end but pulls strong up top and isn't going to kill drivability? You can't. There's no magic cam that does that. There are cams that will add power, but once you get past a certain small upgrade cam, you're going to trade something. You're going to trade power at, some guys are concerned about power at 1,000 RPM, although I don't know why you would. Because that's all that stuff that's below the torque converter. If you have a torque converter, maybe if you have a stick, but if you're going to wide open throttle at 1,000 RPM, you need to take driving classes because you shouldn't be doing that. But you're almost always going to trade something somewhere. So if you can, you may be able to tighten the LSA up and improve horsepower and torque everywhere in your usable range with given amounts of lift and duration, but you're going to trade idle quality and low speed drivability if you do that. If you get more top end, you're going to trade bottom end, all of that stuff. There's always going to be something that's going to be affected. Nothing is going to drive like the stock cam does, but have 50 or 60 more horsepower on top. It's just, that's not going to happen. Headed to a salvage yard that has race cars. Well, all salvage yards have race motors in them, right? I have an 07 Yukon with a 5.3. I want to get around 450 horsepower out of it. If not 450 wheel horsepower, right? 450 flywheel horsepower. 450 flywheel horsepower is certainly possible. That's just a cam and a 5.3. Cam and springs. Turbo Centra, I was testing the new cam on my spare head and it's close to coil bind. How close is too close? 30 thousandths is enough for coil bind. Richard, I have a 5.3 Gen 3, made 800 to the tire, stage 3 turbo cam. I want to build a 6.2. I think a camshaft with an 88 bullet would be good. Yeah, a stage 3 turbo cam that's the one that we've made 1,500 with. So that's camshaft is, in my opinion, it's too big for a 5.3, especially for 800 horsepower. But because you could do that with a lot less camshaft as long as you have the turbo to support it. But yeah, you can make 1 million horsepower with that. You're going to hear use a 3.800 stroke. I've never tried a 3.800 stroke crank in any of the LS stuff, but it would work just like everything else, as long as the math is all right and you have the rod length right and the pin height. What do you see would be the difference in a cam profile between marine and road for the LS platform? I don't think you'd see that. There isn't one that would be a difference between specifically marine and like an automobile and a boat one. you would look at the cam difference for the things that you want it to do in a marine application. You might want a much smaller cam in a marine application if the motor is only running to 4,500 RPM. And you're most interested in having a very low idle so that it goes in and out of gear and doesn't strip the outdrive. Those kinds of things would be way more of a concern than it being in a boat versus it being in a car. Honestly, shocked VVT hasn't really caught on in the aftermarket. The aftermarket has VVT cams available. I just have not tested them. Richard, my cam supplier recommended a 228, 238, 116, 600 turbo cam in my 5.3 S475. If you're watching your videos, I want to go to Truck Norris. A 228 cam, a 228, 38 cam, especially a 116, that cam's not necessary for a S475. You could make 1,000 horsepower with a torque cam, which is a 202, 202. So I think that's way bigger than you need. I don't think it'll drive around the way that you want it to. And it's also not going to be terribly responsive. Putting a 389 in El Camino is going to use 373s, bringing up traction issues. Should I go to 355? I'm also using a 224 at 50. Should I have gone bigger to decrease the power down low? I don't know. A 489 is not going to be limited in torque. I don't know what your converter is, if you have a converter or if you have a stick. That's going to vary it also. I don't know how much you're going to be trying to load the thing in first gear anyway. Are you going to be launching this thing? Is it going to the track? What are you doing with it? Sitting here with a 400 small block ported tune port and a 240, 248 cam. That's the kind of silly cam that I had in that 383. And it's just way more cam than it needs to operate in a range where any kind of tune port is going to be working, especially if it's not even a shorter runner tune port like an SLP or an Excel high ram or any of those. If it is a full length runner, that's way too much cam, especially on a 400. We got a white, well, a 400 probably would be better than if that cam was on a 305. Chip, it doesn't have to be an LS9 question. Have you done any work with an L8T? I haven't. Don't know that I've ever even seen one in person other than maybe there was one on display at the SEMA show or something. Having put $15,000 on a build many years ago that I ruined by not having a clue on how to tune it. should learn to tune on junkyard motors for sure. I'm not looking to have something like the Blueprint 415 that's pre-tuned. With the advances in tuning a standalone ECU tech, do you think more power could be made of a stock roller 5-liter motor without cracking blocks like the rear? I honestly don't think that has anything to do with the tune, because you can make the tune right. You could make the tune right with chip tuning from way back in the day. You could do it with just turning the distributor or not turning the distributor. You can give it the timing that it should have. That's never been a problem. If guys try to what guys have done with Fords, like they have on a lot of other cars during the 80s and early 90s, is that they just run it and hope that it's okay. And that's definitely going to break something. Do 4853 and 60 have the same crank and rod lengths? No, they don't. The 53 and the 60 have the same crank and rod length and pin height on their pistons. The 48 has the same pin height on their piston. The pistons are interchangeable with the other three. The bore sizes are obviously different. But on the 48, the crank stroke is different and the rod length is different. What's the reasonable max bore achievable on an iron block? If you get it sleeved, we've done on sleeve blocks, usually the sleeve guys will tell you what it is if it's a Darton sleeve or whatever, but we've gone 4185, and I think on the sleeve block we could have gone to 4200. I'm very depressed because the cam I picked was supposed to be slightly choppy, but it runs perfectly smooth at 600 RPM. Which cam was that, Bill? I'm scrolling back to see if you had the cam listed on it, Bill, but I'm not seeing it. Let's see. Oh, we don't have a poll yet, right? We do have to have a poll. Okay. So by now, you guys are probably all familiar with the 4-cylinder LS that they had on display at SEMA. I think the guys from Blueprint did it, if I remember right. Is it ever going to really see production? so that will be our poll for today. Everyone hit the like button. That will help you get notified. Do you have any recommendations for a mild cam for towing half-ton truck with a 5.3? I picked out a Summit 209, 217. Yeah, that should work good. That's actually a pretty decent cam for towing. That would be right in the range of what I would recommend. Aaron, I'd like to do the later Hemi cam stuff, but I don't have a Hemi to test them in. Looking to do LS swap my Blazer. For budget, I'm looking to do a 408 LS build or just dropping a Gen 5 LT stock. I think that the Gen 5 LT is going to be more problematic with the fuel setup, and you're going to have the harness and computer and all that stuff, but you're probably going to have that on LS anyway. If you want to do it on a budget, you do it carbureted. But also, if you haven't built either one of them, I don't think I would do a 408. I would do a turbo 5.3. It would be less money and it'd make way more power. So reloading your 496 El Camino is going to be used for the street. I don't think are you going to be launching it in first gear very much. Maybe you don't have to worry about that. Just put a 373 in it and see what happens. Not going to be taken on the freeway, right? I got a 6-liter. I put 4th-gen internals in it and need to know what parts to interchange. Well, what people will tell you to do is make a de-stroked one. So you have a 6-liter, you put the 4.8 crank in it and 4.8 rods, but use the 6.0 pistons. The 4-cylinder is already a production engine. They just need to offer the LS head swap on it. I know, but we're talking about it being the 4-cylinder LS motor. Went from a higher lift cam with appropriate springs down to, say, a Truck Norris where I need to change springs. No, that's not going to be too much of a problem. Ideally, you want the springs to be closer to coil bind based on the lift that you have, but it's, if you have dual springs or a beehive spring and you have a Truck Norris cam, we run that a lot of this fine. You should do a remote tune for piston ranches, 300 cubic inch LS head seems to be. Yeah, I'm not a. Somebody else is probably going to be better at that than I would be. That would be Eric or Ish. I mean, if he's running a Holly with it and he could show me the air fuel, I can tell him how many clicks he needs to run it at wide open throttle. Is the new 4-cylinder LS offered by Blueprint ever going to see production? 64% are saying positive. Just got a call from Brule. Let's see. Okay, so is a D-stroke 6-liter better for a turbo setup in a street car? No, it's not. I mean, you'd be better off, in my opinion, just to build a 6-liter and not have it be a D-stroke one. But lots of guys will tell you, oh yeah, you got to put that short stroke in there so you can run lots of RPM, yada, yada, yada. It'll make more power, be more responsive if you have a 6-liter. But again, is that the right question? Just like we were talking about with the LS9, if you have a 6-liter and not the D-stroke version of the 6-liter, and you have an overabundance of torque because you have all of that extra stroke length and extra response, and then, or extra low speed torque and then extra turbo response, do you have more of a traction problem? And would it have been better to have the D-stroke one? That's another question, right? But a turbo 6-liter is definitely fun. There's no doubt about that. Turbo anything is fun. Life is just better with boost. How am I, though? He doesn't even wake up. Buy Brule a 6-pack of cherry Coke and bring him in for one of the live streams. Yeah, he's not going to come to Northern California for a live stream, but I will do a live stream down there with him, though. He's good people. Yeah, Steve's good. Steve's good peeps. All the guys down at West Tech they're awesome. It's my other family. When you know somebody for that many years, it's they become family. Oh, my mic. See? How's that? That's right. It's my Darth Vader voice. I would like to see that. The Ford with the LS head on it. I think that's kind of cool. Adam, LS9 works well, limits power down low where the stock bottom end motor rods and ring lands. Loose converter, ramping power in 55. Yeah, 5500 would be way past the good part of the LS9. I mean, way past the bad part. I have a Gen 3 6-liter with twins, an 89 Camaro, 8 to 10 pounds, which is too much fun, honestly. Handful. Yeah, it would. 10 pounds on a 6-liter. On a 6-liter with a cam in it and 10 pounds, that could be a lot of power. In fact, we're going to go look and see. We'll get an idea. So when everything is right, if you have a 6-liter that has good heads and cam and intake manifold on it, like I did with the Big Bang motor, and you run 10 pounds on it, as they say, good things happen. So I'm going to look at LS Cathedral port, turbo, pure turbonium, Big Bang Turbo Gen 4 LS Engine Masters. Let's see, I don't even know if I ever ran it down at 10 pounds. I don't think I did. Maybe here's a 12 pound. Oh yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, this was at a peak of 12 pounds, and this was 967 horsepower. So, yeah, I don't think I didn't do any 10-pound runs. At least not on, let's see, ice water, no. 6-liter. No, I think I did. I'd have to look those up and see. I did on some of the very early testing, but 12 pounds and 950 horsepower is pretty good. Blazer's really clean as a daily driver. Want to keep all the accessories. That's good. I mean, Ford vs. Ferrari has LS heads on the bench of the movie. I know. Exactly. I know. And in the movie, they had stack injection behind them. And then we're talking about taking the vacuum secondary Holley off and putting a double pumper on it. I'm like, you couldn't have had a carburetor on there with the bathtub thing that Shelby had on those and stuff. Where can I find a two-step? I don't know. I have honestly never looked for one. What injectors you recommend for a boosted 5.3 on E85? It depends on the power level, but probably the most common thing are to put 80 pounders on there. But with E85, you need more fuel flow. So 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 cc stuff is probably more common on the E85 stuff, unless you're only running 600 or 700 horsepower. My LS3 and my Denali, the 6.2, what's needed to get about 525 foot-pounds of torque? I don't think you're going to do that with a 6.2. I think you would need to make that a stroker to be able to do that. Getting 500 horsepower is very easy. In fact, getting a lot more than 500 horsepower is very easy. Now, I might be wrong here. I'm going to have to look and see. Maybe we did get more than that on some of these cams. Yeah, here's a Summit Stage 4. Oh, yeah. Let's see. No, that's horsepower. Yeah, no, I thought they were going to be in the 500s and the low 500s. A 525 would be a lot of torque. That'd be hard to get. I don't know that you could. A 408 stroker would definitely do it. Maybe on the LS3 stuff. Because that's going to have more compression than the L92. So there's a 231 cam. Yeah, even that's 516, 517. So yeah, that'd be hard to make 525 at the flywheel. 500 horsepower is just a cam. 550 or 560 is possible with just a cam. Auto body, I did see the thing. Freiberger posted something about Danny Jessel. I didn't know him or I haven't ever met him, but it's always sad to see guys like that go away. Adam, the load on the engine dyno is more than it is on the car. You don't ever experience a stationary load like we do when we initially load the car. And also the rate of acceleration is changing in a vehicle based on gear. And we can change the rate of acceleration in the dyno. But think about it this way. When we run a sweep from 3,000 to 6,500, if we're running at 3,000 RPM per second, it takes longer to make that single pull than it does for guys to go down the track. So it's not... If anything, the dyno puts more load on it. And we know guys are doing the big bang level of power. We know guys are doing that on the track. I mean, Jonathan's he runs way more boost and way more power than we did on these motors on the engine. And I'm certain of it. I'm sure he's running 35 or 40 pounds on some of his stuff. What is your opinion on a carbureted LS motor? Guys do it all the time. We've run, and I have videos up of comparing on the same manifold carburetors, a carburetor versus fuel injection, batch fire, sequential, and individual cylinder trimming. I have that up there. Carburetors actually do very well on the same manifold. The question about power would be more of what manifold are you changing to? Because when guys do carburation versus fuel injection, they do, if you're just looking for power, they would change the manifold to run fuel injected stuff. A lot of the EFI manifolds, like a fast or whatever, you can't run that with a carburetor because it's not a carbureted manifold. So the argument for carburation and fuel injection is kind of a silly thing. Again, it's just, I want my way to be the best way, and somebody wants their way to be the best way, and it's just nonsense. I'm running Deca 80s with an in-tank Walboro 400 on pump gas. Yeah, 80s will work on pump gas, and they'll work. The problem is that you need to flow 25% more fuel or so, maybe as much as 30 on E85. So the amount of power that the same size injector will feed is much less with the 85. Why are mainline hub dynos so popular now? I didn't realize that they were. I think that a hub dyno is probably a lot less expensive and a lot less easier to install and run in a shop than it is to dig a hole in the ground and put your typical drum dyno, or to build. The way that I had my dyno jet is it was up on a you lifted the car up on a lift and then either backed onto it or drove onto it. But I think that guys are using the hub dynos probably are doing it because of that. Mexico City's in the house. In the house with a 3,000 RPM stall converter, what would be the max boost you could build on a two-step? I don't know, but why do you have a stage 4 camshaft in a 5.3 with twin GT45s? If you want to build more boost, you need to put a different camshaft in it. You ever consider doing a cheap pop-up piston in an LS? What is a cheap pop-up piston? Dave, twin GT45s, are you trying to make 1,500 or 1,600 horsepower? With a 3,000 stall converter, it sounds like you might be, but so let me know what the power level is. But you don't need a stage 4 cam to get there. I mean, we made 1,500 with a stage 3 cam on a bigger motor, so you don't need that much camshaft to do that. Do you know anywhere I can get a decent HP tuners file for a 6-liter Silverado? It's a stock truck, and you're tuning it. Is a new 4-cylinder motor offered by Blueprint ever going to see production? The no's have taken over at 54%. LSX100. So yeah, you're converting your Pontiacs to run. Yeah, if you have high compression stuff, especially with stuff that is iron headed, E85 is really a good way to go. A Hypertech Summit pop-up piston to get the compression way up. I don't really like high compression NA motors. It's pushing the area up where you get into the problematic range and the gain that you get there. Like if you add 5 pounds of boost, it's just a lot easier to do that. But yeah, you can. And I honestly don't like dome pistons. I think that they're terrible for flame travel. I know that we have a gain as we go up in static compression and we go down in efficiency and we go up more than we go down, but I still don't like them. I would much rather do it with a very, very small chamber. Like I'd almost be more inclined to weld the chamber up and have a small dome. Man, Sean, I felt some of those diesel pistons. Those things, some of those are pretty heavy. Converting the old guys to E85 was rough until it showed them what's possible. Well, it's new. You can't have anything new. It's like letting people walk on your lawn, right? Dave, a stage 3 cam would be better down low than a stage 4, yes. And depending on how much power you want to make, I would go even lower than that. You don't need a 230-ish cam at 50 on a 5.3 to make power with it. I mean, if you were trying to do an NA motor, then yeah, you would put that kind of camshaft in it. But to make 1,000 horsepower on a 5.3, like I said, you could do that with a 2.0 cam, a 206 or a 210. I would probably put a Truck Norris or something in there, and which we already showed works pretty well. But not just that cam, and that people get wrapped up in that too. I show them, hey, look, here's the test we did on the best cam or the Truck Norris cam or the hot rod cam or whatever it is, and they're like, oh yeah, I got to get that cam. That's a magic cam. No, it's not a magic cam. There's lots of camshafts that are in that like range of specs will do the same thing. Is there any way you can do a shootout between regular headers, 8-1, and 180-degree headers? That's really, really hard on the dyno because all of the dyno stuff is right behind the motor. So doing that bundle of snakes or even a 180-degree header is hard. We'd have to aim it forward, so it just wouldn't work out very well. That would actually be easier on the chassis dyno, like in a sand rail. Old Hemi Indy engine pistons are heavy. I remember Brule was showing me the weights of the rotating assembly on. They built a Hemi for the owner, and he's got a blower on it and stuff. And it's a cool old Keith Black, like NASCAR block, I think. So it's all shaved and everything. It's all lightweight, and then they built a blower motor out of it. But the weight of the rotating assembly was just ridiculous. How much power can I make on a 6-liter with twin 7875s? Those are about 1,000 horsepower turbos, so you probably could make 2,000 if you had everything right. Is it really much more punishing on the valve guides to go from 500 to 650 lift? You're going to have more side load on the guide when you do that, especially on a factory non-roller tip rocker. Brendan, 220 at 50 made 1,080 in my old 4.8. Yeah, that's more than enough cam. Stop thinking about the cam in terms of the cam and start thinking about it in terms of what kind of power you make. If you make 400 horsepower, you're at 800 at 14.7 pounds of boost. And you're at 1,000 horsepower at another 7 pounds. So that's not hard. And a 400 horsepower 4.8 is just a cammed 4.8. In fact, you could do much more than that. Can exhaust back pressure unseat the wastegate? Yeah, back pressure works to open the wastegate. And it's one of the things that you have to resist, which is why they usually have on a good wastegate controller, why you have also positive pressure on the top of the gate. Because if you think about it, if you have a 3-to-1 boost pressure to back pressure ratio, you have 30 pounds of back pressure and 10 pounds of boost. The wastegate can actually just open up by itself, even without a boost reference going to it. Have you studied the technology of current Formula One motors? I haven't even watched a Formula One race for a long time. I'd like to understand pneumatic valve springs and what needs to be done to turn 17,000 RPM. You should. That's where to get it. That's where to get that sort of technology. I have a really good book on Ferrari Formula One stuff, but it's much older technology, though. I think that this was done in Under the Skin of a Championship-winning F1 2000. What the heck? Where is this? This has really cool stuff on it. Let's see when this was written. Library of Congress. Copyright 2003. Michael Schumacher. Yeah, this had to have been early because even if they wrote it in 2003, they wouldn't be giving them current technology. Yeah, Jean Todt. This was a while ago. Man, now even this is old. No, I haven't looked at the current stuff. Oh, we're back. Let's see. Come on. It's not working with me. I can't imagine a 4-cylinder LS ever replacing a carry series. No, it's not going to. That motor will not be. That motor will not be what a Honda is. It doesn't. It's not anywhere near that efficient. Let's see here. Come on, you stupid camera. It's gonna mess you up. You're definitely gonna be replaced though. You recognize Jean Todt? Well, I followed Formula One a lot back when Michael Schumacher was racing. But my wife and I used to get up early and watch races and stuff. The Atlas motor is not as good as a K series either. Doesn't have anywhere near the specific output. Yeah, what I want is just a manual focus camera that never changes. I just want to adjust it once and then never have to worry about it again. Marty, the forged pistons you can get from Summit. See, it should autofocus really quickly, but yeah, the Summit stuff, the Summit Pro LS stuff is good. Okay, I'm gonna try to make it do something. I did my scary face. Yeah. I've used the Summit stuff. It works good. I don't know who's making them for them, but it's good. Camera wants to focus on the mic. I'll move that out of the way. It's not wanting to because I even put my hand over that. Wiseco makes the Summit turbo pistons. That's good stuff. I've used Wiseco stuff a lot. I've used JE. I've used Molly stuff. I've used CP. I've never had any problems with pistons. And I always step back and go, hey, look, given what we do on stock, like cast pistons, force piston is going to be a lot better. I know I scared it into submission. So how's our poll doing? 51% are saying no, that they don't think it's going to see production. So we're almost 50-50 on that. I was going to sick Milo on the camera. I have said awful things about the LS9 and obviously lots of people have made it work. But I did do a video on that. That was my $100 camshaft thing because the LS9 cams were so cheap that, like I said, people were just giving them away. You could find them used all the time. Back when I did the video, it's probably still the same now. And I think even when I did my testing of all of the factory camshafts, I ended up finding a factory LS9 camshaft, but I also got an LS9 camshaft from Crane. They had a duplicate, and I don't know if it's because they did the cams for GM or they just got masters for them because they both made exactly the same power. Have you done any turbos on a 3.4 Chevy V6? I have. I've done it on, not a 3400. We've done it on a 3100, which is the smaller version of that motor. Mike, in your opinion, what's the best naturally aspirated cam for an LS? It would be the one that you have, whatever that is. you have your own best cam. Because obviously I'm giving you a hard time, but the best cam is the one that does the things that you want it to do. Because you'll have a whole list of things that you want a camshaft to do, and me giving somebody peak horsepower, peak torque, or even average horsepower, average torque, which is why I give people curves so they can see the whole picture. That's why I like curves, and that's why I don't ever just talk about. I mean, I provide the peak number in the curve that I show. But I would never just go on and say, yeah, this cam made 221 horsepower and this one made 218. Well, you'd go, well, 221 is better than 218. Yeah, except it lost power everywhere else in the curve. And so it doesn't tell the story, but the curves tell the whole curve story. So it depends on what you're trying to get done. Have I ever tested ethanol content, E85 versus E50? No, but I've been told the same thing that you're saying there is that there's not a drop in NOx sensitivity or performance going from E85 to E50. I haven't done a measured test to see where they all are and then tried to verify that with maximum power timing or detonation or anything, because I can't do detonation testing. But I can tell you that when I go to the local gas station that's over by West Tech and I fill up with E85, I never even check it. I don't even care what it is. We just put it in there. It's just E85. And it's not E85 because the E85 in the pump can vary dramatically. So, but it's good enough, and I don't really care about it. How bad is it living in California being a car guy? It's awesome. This is where hot rodding started. I think when people ask about the best cam, they refer to a good power maker with minimal loss and reliability and tune. Just what I figured. Again, that's not enough. So when you pick a camshaft, you'll pick a camshaft for your list of reasons. I want the max power, max torque, best average power, best average torque, best power from 2,000 to 4,000, or best power from 4,000 to 6,000, or works with a stock converter, gets the best mileage, idles the best, idles the worst because they could want the chop. All of these things are going to be on their list, and then however your hierarchy of the list lays itself out, and then whatever you apply to the value of each one of those and what order you put them in and what things you put on your list. All of that's going to be different for different people. So your best cam might be a stock cam. Your best cam might be a cam that makes the most peak power. Your best cam might be somewhere in between. It might be a Truck Norris. It might be a Chupacabra. It might be a cam that you probably shouldn't run because it only has 4,000 piston to valve clearance, but it makes the most peak power. That's the thing. I can't tell you what people want. I can tell you a lot of times when people ask that question, what they want is they want the magic cam that does everything. Well, that isn't there. There isn't one that makes more low speed power and mid-range power and top end power than every other cam in the market. That just doesn't exist because it can't. It's not possible. It's not a possibility. For ported LS7 head, should I pay more attention to the intake, the exhaust flow ratio, or the actual flow? To try to solve what problem are you looking at there? Your flow question. Yeah, Admiral, to test the detonation sensitivity, you'd have to go into detonation. You have to get knock counts, and you have to do that in a car would be a better place to do that. And even then, you have to run a bunch of baseline tests and have it be consistent over a long period of time, and then change the fuel and then do it again. You can't a lot of guys will just run one test and then change the fuel and do a test and go, oh yeah, we saw this big change. Yeah, but you saw a big change because the DA changed dramatically during the day. The air temperature changed. Your car got hot. The transmission, and that's the problem with doing chassis dyno stuff is it can be problematic. Dave, you put 1/600 valves in an LS head? That's pretty big. That's much more than most people do. Most guys do a 1.550 or 1.560. Same problem every car guy's been chasing. You cannot have the best of both worlds. I get that comment or comment in question a lot. In fact, I just got it on the LS9 stuff. What guys have asked me, well, I want your recommendation on cam. I want a cam that doesn't do anything to reliability or drivability, but I want a lot more power. Well, you should just add boost because that's the thing that you're looking for. They don't want to give up anything that they have, but they just want more of all the good stuff. I'm like, yeah, that would be nice. Do you have a piston and rod combo that you recommend for a 6-liter with twin 7875s? Well, we tried to do it on the stock crank rod piston assembly with ring gap and got to 1,500 or over 1,500 on ours. We had twin 70 S475s on it. But are you trying to make 2,000 horsepower? Because if you're trying to make 2,000 horsepower, you need a different block too. You still plan on building more 351 Windsors? I do want to do more 351 testing. It's Coke Zero, all the Coke 0 calories, but it tastes awful. Yep, the best cam is just add boost. Yeah, there's always going to be a trade-off. The thing is how much, and again, when I was talking about the whole list of things that you want, maybe you want to trim some of that peak power for the stuff that you see. And I would say that at least I would lean this way, that I'd be much happier about trading some of that peak power at 6,500 or 7,000 for better stuff that I'm using more often when I'm driving around. Like in my truck, I could care less what a cam would do at 6,000 because I've never seen 6,000 in that truck. So it wouldn't make any difference to me. So we're going to end our poll at 51% saying no, that they don't think that motor is ever going to see the light of day. So you want to make all that you can and not break the block. Well, I don't know that guys are doing, anybody that's going more than 1,500, I think is starting to think about a different block. I know guys can run them and make passes on them like that, but I think that the caps and stuff are going to move around. So I don't know. You're going to need most guys that are doing that kind of stuff are using like a Dragon Slayer crank. And they have, you can talk to Brian Tooley about the stuff that they put together for they do like 388s or something like that. That when they're trying to make, 2,000 horsepower level stuff. Adam's saying he runs twin 7875s on a 5.3. Spool them at 4,000, on a trans brake. 9.5-inch converter. So that's a race application. Getaway. I've got lots of LS3 cams up there on the dyno. I mean, up on the channel. What truck do you have and does it have a built motor? It's an 02 Silverado, and it has a 328,000 mile 5.3 liter, and it's all stock. You need a new TSP converter killer cam. That's Matt Happel's deal. I know I'm going to get made fun of, but I'm a nitrous guy. Nitrous works really well. I was really excited the first time I put a nitrous kit on a car. Your favorite 351 EFI intake for street and turbo cars under 6,500 RPM. I'm guessing it's going to be the high ram. I haven't tested it yet, but judging by what we did on the 302 with that old Flowmaster tunnel ram style deal, I think that's going to be better. I'm going back to the Big Bang videos. Yep. Cam springs boost. It does have a lot of miles on it. And it's loud when you start it up in the morning. I let it warm up so that some of the noises will go away. I don't know if it's a lifter tick or a rod tick or whatever, but it still runs. Let's see here. I was scrolling back to try to find another one. Oh, the biggest cam that I used in for an NA LS3, I think, or you're going to do it in an LS3, okay? The Red Hot cam in the LS3 is going to work good. The new Red Hot cam from BTR is a good choice for that. In my case, will the new exhaust cam change the bottom end? You're actually not trying to change the bottom end. It's probably going to it's probably going to have less power at the bottom, and it's probably going to have more at the top. Have you done an LS3 with a truck Norris cam? I haven't. I haven't run it in a 6-liter either. LS7, yours will be the last question for today because I got to get going. I don't know if one of those has more weight than the other. I look at everything on the head, but actually intake to exhaust flow relationship, I don't look at that much. If you look at intake to exhaust flow relationship on an LS3 head versus a cathedral port head, the intake to exhaust flow relationship is terrible on an LS3 head compared to a cathedral port head because the cathedral port head flows less intake air. And the LS3 head makes more power because it has more flow, but it also makes less low speed power. And that has nothing to do with either one of those things because it flows more air, but it has a really big valve and has a really big port and has a really big chamber. And so you have to look at all of those things to decide on what the head's going to do, which one's going to make more power. I myself would be more interested in the exhaust or the flow rate of the head, but I'd be more interested in the coefficient of discharge of the head and then what the average flow rate is through the lift. And most importantly, what the mid-lift flow is what I would be interested in. I would not be interested that much in the exhaust flow. But all of it matters. All of it matters. And on that note, it is time to go. I will be back tonight, 7 o'clock. So make sure that you're here. And I'm going to go work on another video right now because I at last count, I think I had 35 different camshafts that I tested in turbo applications. And so far, every one of them is a turbo cam. See you guys later.